Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Antimatter Gamez podcast. I am your host, Chris Chigueras, and with me, as always, Samantha Jennings.
Hi.
And Sir Matthew Blake.
Hey.
Sir, I'm going to call you Sir from now on forever.
I'll take it.
We got some fun stuff to talk about this week, but first, we are going to see whose magic is mightier. We are going to pit epic video game, movie, and literary casters, magic users against each other, decide who would best the other, and we'll talk about why. So first we have the legendary demon hunter, Illidan Stormrage, versus the primeval himself, Diablo. Discuss.
Ooh.
I'm going to say Diablo. Just cuz. I mean, Illidan, he has magic. He must.
Don't forget, Illidan is a demon hunter by profession.
He is. And yet they're still making Diablo games. So Diablo must be mightier.
If you're going by that argument, Illidan was just put into Heroes of the Storm. Or no, Hearthstone. So, Illidan's still kicking around too, man.
I mean, yeah, but if he was good at his job, Diablo wouldn't be.
I will say, anytime I come up against somebody who's playing as him in Hearthstone, I get wrecked every single time.
Oh, I guarantee you he's OP now. They just added him in the game.
Apparently they're buffing him again. I mean, nerfing him. Nerfing.
Right.
The opposite of buff. I saw something about that.
Let's think about tactics, though, okay? Diablo is very big. He has lightning magic. He has fire magic. And that's really all he has.
That's all he needs.
Yeah. Illidan, skilled in hand-to-hand combat. He has possessed blades given to him by the Burning Legion. He has true demonic sight. He's bred to kill demons.
He is.
And he's very agile and a lot smaller than Diablo.
But I mean, combat magic aside, you can't keep Diablo down. I personally have killed him at least twice.
Fair.
3 times, really.
3 times.
3 times. And he keeps coming back. So, Illidan's in for the long game.
So we're going to say Diablo is the winner here?
I'm in the Diablo camp. I think that it would be a good fight, and maybe Illidan could kill Diablo once, but then Diablo's going to be back in
True,
a few decades. Illidan's going to get older. He's going to get weaker, and I think in the long game, Diablo will outlast, and through magical means.
All right, in the battle of Illidan Stormrage versus Diablo, Diablo is victorious. Next on the list, we have Gandalf the Grey versus Albus Dumbledore.
Ooh.
Well,
that's a rough one.
Well, Dumbledore didn't come back.
That's true, but he couldn't. He couldn't. That was all part of the plan.
Was it? I don't know. I'm kind of out of my element here. I'm not very Harry Potter aware.
He had to die. He had to die.
Because the actor died?
No, they switched actors. We're talking about the fictional character here, not Michael Gambon or Richard Harris.
Yes, Richard Harris did die.
Yeah, he died of cancer, unfortunately, because he was a great Dumbledore.
Yeah.
He would have been. Cool.
Anyways, so Gandalf dies, or seems to die, but he just comes back stronger. Dumbledore did not come back stronger. Gandalf
stays dead.
Plus,
I'm trying to remember who wins in the epic rap battle.
The rap battle?
Yeah. Did you ever watch those epic rap battles?
I've watched some of them, not that one.
Yeah. There's a Gandalf versus Dumbledore one, and I'm trying to remember who wins. I think it was Gandalf. I'm pretty sure.
Gandalf must be tougher because you see, Dumbledore, he had all these resources at his disposal. Like, he ran a fucking school, you know? He was probably taught. He did, but like Gandalf, how did Gandalf learn? Pure force of brains.
He didn't. He was just Gandalf. one day. See, here's my argument. I mean, first of all, Dumbledore has the Elder Wand, so he's got a very magical, powerful artifact in his possession to fight Gandalf with. The most powerful wand on Earth, in the Harry Potter world anyway. But I think that Gandalf would win because Dumbledore is a man. Gandalf is not. Gandalf is in the guise of a man. Now, the wizards in Lord of the Rings, this is where I get super nerdy with you, they belong to a race called the Ishtari, who are essentially angels sent down to Middle-earth by Arnor, God in Tolkien's world, to serve mankind, to like protect mankind against great evils. So that's why when Gandalf dies fighting the Balrog, he gets sent back. So he's always Gandalf, and he can never really die. It's
That's
just
true.
if his job, if his job is done or not.
Yeah.
So I think the clear winner here would be Gandalf the Grey.
Meanwhile, Dumbledore is like, oh no, there's a troll in the bathroom. Make the kids deal with it.
Troll in the dungeon. All right, Gandalf wins. Next on the list, Shang Tsung versus David Lopan.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Matt, you take this one.
This is kind of tricky because I always felt like Shang Tsung was just Lopan. Like, he even looked like him in the first one, right? Like,
yeah, he really did.
So, like, you're talking about the original versus the kind of the copy, but the copy has had a much longer franchise.
Here's a question for you
But
before we
Shang
go
Tsung's
farther
lost
into who
so
would
many
win.
times.
Yeah, I got a question for you though. Big Trouble in Little China came out before the first Mortal Kombat game. Do we think that Lord Raiden and Shang Tsung are direct rips off the Three Storms and David Lopan?
Yes, and I would even go further that Johnny Cage is actually is not a total rip, but like was inspired by, because like I feel like if they made Johnny Cage like a truck driver, that would be a little too on the nose. So they're like, what's something else really like classic American? Oh, movie star. So I feel like
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, I feel like Johnny Cage is like kind of that.
Okay, let's go back to who would actually win versus Shang Tsung and Lopan. Whose magic is mightier? Because they're both sorcerers.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Lopan is like ethereal, right? He's
also
he's cursed.
Let's set the stage here. Are they both their old selves?
Their old selves? Yeah. Let's say Lopan is his like diminished form. No, sorry. Lopan is not the old man in the wheelchair. He is, 7 foot tall Lopan the wizard.
Right.
And Shang Tsung is, let's put him in his most powerful form to fight each other. Both at their best.
And how many forms can Shang Tsung assume?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's say, everyone's soul he's taken. That's one of his strengths, right?
It is, but I'm like, who are we bringing to the table? Because I feel like if you bring the entire cast of Mortal Kombat to the table in the form of Shang Tsung, then he wins, but not necessarily as Shang Tsung. But then again, Lopan could just be like, "Whoa!" and get him with like the mouth light.
The mouth light, or hit him with the video game thumbs. Is it like that? It's like this.
Oh man, yeah. You know what? I'm gonna say Lopan. I'm gonna say Lopan because he can't beat the original, and Shang Tsung has had his ass kicked a lot, whereas Lopan only happened once. Shang Tsung has yeah.
And to be fair, Lopan only got his ass kicked after he purposefully made himself mortal. Then Jack Burton was able to kill him. If he had stayed in his ethereal form, forget it.
Yeah, so
we're
I think
going
ethereal
with
Lopan.
David Lopan.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the list, Arthas Menethil, or the Lich King, versus Sam. This will be great for you, Darth Sidious. Who wins?
Darth Sidious.
Oh, you gotta tell me why.
Hands down, because he can do everything. There's literally nothing that he can't do. He can get killed
spin
off in a
around in a
franchise
circle.
and surprise you and come back at the end of another franchise.
That was a clone of Sidious. Confirmed. That's not Darth Sidious.
Yeah,
It's a
true.
clone.
But he had the wherewithal to set all that up. He's like a brilliant character. Darth Sidious is Star Wars, if we're gonna this.
But what is Darth Sidious going to do against against Arthas's undead army? His hordes of undead at his command. We're talking like hundreds of thousands, legions. Could Sidious kill them all?
I don't think he would have to necessarily kill them all. I think he would like worm tongue his way in and somehow convince Arthas to work for him or like give him his. That's what he does. He manipulates, the ultimate manipulator, and then he would have that army, and then he would turn on him and he would kill him. Lightning fingers.
He'd win over Arthas like Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's what he does. That's legit. That's his MO.
Matt, what do you think?
I'm totally out of my element here.
Oh, you know who Darth Sidious is? Come on, man.
I know of him.
The Emperor.
Is he?
And you know.
Yes.
And you know who?
Remember,
yeah,
I haven't seen the
about.
most recent Star Wars, right? So
Well,
He's the one like this.
He's the
that's Emperor
from-
Palpatine.
Yes. He's also called Darth Sidious.
Wait, he is? He's
Yes.
Darth Sidious?
Yes.
Fuck.
Also, Luke.
Well, isn't Darth
Skywalker is
Sidious
Darth
supposed to be?
Vader's son.
Sorry, am I getting all like, woo, but like, am I getting all mixed up here? I thought Darth Sidious was way older.
You're thinking of Darth Plagueis,
Yeah, I am.
the
Never
wise.
mind.
He tells Anakin about his story about trying to conquer death.
One of the
Right.
greatest scenes all of. By the way,
I'm pretty sure that took
It
place in the first 3 movies, so no, it's not.
So I want to take undead legions out of it. I want to take, sneaky tongues out of it. Both of them head to head. Who wins in a fight? A battle. No help, no words, just combat.
Sidious.
yeah, I still think Sidious.
No, because Arthas' armor is definitely conductive.
Oh yeah, for
Like Arthas has a physical edge, but like he's just gonna get zapped to fuck.
Yeah, but what if he uses his cursed blade to like redirect the lightning like a Jedi?
Can he do that?
I don't know if it would work that way. If he can do
I mean-
that,
I mean, Frostmourne is like a legendary demonic blade.
oh yeah. Well, if he can do that, he's fucked because like that old man goes down real easy. We've seen it.
I'm going with Arthas.
But he could still like force push him into a wall. He could
Maybe.
pull the sword out of his hand and then shoot him with his lightning.
Arthas would not be expecting force.
I saw
powers.
a dude who'd already lost 3 limbs lose one of his remaining hands and still take that dude down. So
Wait, who are we talking about?
Vader.
Oh,
No.
he was hurting his son, man.
Yeah, I know, but like the dude was like literally like borderline quadriplegic.
Okay,
That's why Anakin is so strong. Okay, we need to have a Star Wars talk one day.
Emperor Palpatine wins. Last on the list, Lord Raiden versus Alucard. Two seemingly immortal beings.
Shit, I think I have to give it to Raiden. For the
Yeah.
same reason, I don't think that vampires deal well with lightning. Because lightning would cause burns. And
True.
traditionally, vampires don't deal well with burns. So I think that if Raiden was able to electrocute Alucard, those wounds would not heal. I think Alucard, and Alucard's wicked fast, lightning's faster. So I think, yeah.
I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. Vampires notoriously weak to fire.
Yeah.
Fire damage.
I think at the end of the day, Raiden would. Raiden just has like an edge. Like it's if they were just like fighting, and it was like no powers, it would be a different story. But it's just like who wins,
The
the
light.
tank or the anti-tank gun? It's like, well,
True. Sam, what
The
were you gonna
lightning-
say?
It's the lightning damage. It always
It's
it
OP.
yeah.
It's OP.
Unless you
All
have
right,
AD
that's-
lightning resist.
That's it for Whose Magic is Mightier. For the next segment of the podcast, I wanted to dip in a little bit to a game we've all been playing recently. And it's actually the subject of last week's bet, which is Dark Souls 3. It's a game that we've all beaten multiple times at this point, or at least Sam's on her second time
Yep.
around. She's almost done for the second time. Me and Matt have beat it like 5 or 6 times each. It's one of my favorite games of the console generation, even though it didn't make my top 10 list. So I wanted to take a second and really talk about what makes Dark Souls 3 great, what we like about it, what we don't, kind of do like a little mini review of it. Did you want to start, Matt?
Sure. I'll make it short and we can all get something out and then we can all go around a few times if that works. I think what makes it great is the fact that they'd learned a whole bunch of lessons from all the Souls games and Bloodborne even up to that point and kind of refined it. It's not like what I don't like, but what I think is sort of the weakness of it is it's because of all that refinement, it's great to play and it's super fun, but there was never any, compared to other games, there were fewer wow moments or oh shit moments, because I felt like I'd seen a lot of it before, either mechanically or literally, Anor Londo. I've been here before 2 games ago, you know?
But you weren't surprised when you pulled the lever and you were met with Anor Londo for the second time in Dark Souls 3? That was big for me, for sure.
I was a little surprised.
Actually, you know what? This is to your detriment that you're one of my best friends. I was right beside you when we found Anor Londo for the first time playing Dark Souls 3. And you freaked out about it.
Yeah, I did. I'm not saying I didn't like those moments, but compared to when I found Anor Londo the very first time in the first game, and was like, holy shit, you know?
Yeah.
And then then there was the downside. I found Anor Londo, and that was cool. But then I realized a lot of the areas I wanted to check out again, I couldn't, because they were just walled off and stuff. So
yeah.
But no, it was awesome seeing Anor Londo again. It was it was a great game. I'm not trying to knock it. I just think that it was so polished that it lost some of those jagged little bits of character that I'd associated with the Dark Souls series, and though that benefited it almost completely, 100% in the gameplay department. You know, also casters weren't as viable
in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah,
my Pyromancer might argue with you, but Sam, I want to get your opinion. Just as I think Dark Souls 3 was the first game you played in the Souls series, and I ran you through it. So as the newest member to the Souls fan club, what were your first impressions of Dark Souls?
I really liked it. I was surprised how much I ended up enjoying it after playing. It was one of the first games, actually it was probably the first game that I ever played that had environment and maps like it does, where everything is just one giant area that you slowly kind of unlock. The notion of shortcuts was super cool. I had never played anything like that before, where you would see a door and it's oh yeah, you'll be able to get back through in an hour once we clear through this whole section. And the fact that it's just the level design is so cool and so intricate, it amazes me. And then being able to go and play Bloodborne afterwards and have that same kind of mechanic was awesome. I absolutely love it. It's also one of those games where every boss battle still gets me pumped when I beat it. Every time I go into a room, I'm terrified. And it's you go back and you play other games and you've beaten these bosses before and you're okay, I know what I'm in for. But I'm still scared every time I go into the first boss. So it always has that excitement factor.
Oh,
Yeah, it's super fun. Oh, and there's so many different ways you can play it. Like just going online and reading, like if you kill this character at this point in time, this is gonna happen. Or if you want to save this till the end of the game, you can save that, or you can jump here and you can do that. And there's so many different ways that you can play it versus like it's almost like an open world game, but not. Like it has so much structure to it, but there's also a ton of flexibility in the way that you play it. Which is cool. So it's like all of those things I had never seen before in any game. So it was just like opening up this whole new genre that I probably never would have tried.
It definitely feels like an open world game. It feels like you are in this giant, in this giant world, even though everything's kind of, I mean, technically linear and interconnected, even though you backtrack a bunch in a lot of the levels, it feels like you start at the top of this peak, and you kind of do at the beginning of the game. I can't remember what the first area is called. Do you remember?
Oh, it'll come to me.
Anyway, so the first area you start way up on this mountaintop, and what I love about Souls, and this is true of the other Souls games as well, but you can walk up to the cliff where the first bonfire is there, and look over, and you're looking at exactly where you're going to be going. Like an hour from now, 2 hours from now, you can see the high wall of Lothric. It's down there, and you're going to be walking on those steps very soon. So, not a lot of video games have that scope.
Yeah, Dark Souls 2 kind of fucked that one up.
Yeah, but Dark Souls 2 is a whole other thing. They didn't have Miyazaki directing it. He's pretty key to the Dark Souls series. Another big strength I like about Dark Souls is its replayability, and I think that's where other Souls games like Sekiro, for instance, really fall flat. Sekiro is an amazing game, but once I finished it for the first time, I was pretty much done, because what am I going to go back and do? I'm a guy, I have a sword, I can't change my armor, I can't do a different build. But with Dark Souls, I've done like 5 or 6 different classes that play completely differently from the other ones, using different skill sets, different weapons. There's tons of awesome weapons to use in Dark Souls. There's lots of great magic. And back to your magic not being viable.
I'm just saying not as viable.
Yeah, so my one magic user that I made, I never made a sorcerer or a healer or anything like that, was a pyromancer, and I feel like that's the most viable source of magic in the game. And that pyromancer kicks some butt.
Yeah, I was kind of specifically talking about sorcerer.
Okay.
Like the sorcerer build, compared to other games, you have to go a lot further before you can do damage with it. The change in the magic system from the previous 2 Dark Souls really kind of limited how much magic you could use. So just to refresh anyone's memory, in Dark Souls 1 and 2, when you would learn a spell and attune it, there was no blue bar, there was no magic bar, and based on your attunement level, you would get a certain number of casts of that spell before you had to rest and replenish them. So it's not like you could use a weapon skill and then, not be able to cast something because you used some of your blue bar. That didn't exist. And then once you got your attunement high, something like, Soul Arrow or whatever, would have like 40 casts. And you could just cast those 40. It would use stamina to cast, but that comes back really quickly. And when you made like an end magic user, you could literally cast hundreds of spells just before resting. And you just had to like kind of, okay, I got my big spell, I can only cast that 3 times, and I got my smaller spells that are just like little damage that I'll use to chip away at, smaller enemies, and I can cast those 40 times. Then I got this area effect I can cast 10 times. And then you can just go and be pure magic. Like you don't have to worry about using any melee combat. Dark Souls 3, if you do that, you're loaded up with the Ashen Estus.
Yep.
Ashen Estus. Yeah, and then you can't heal because you're constantly using the blue ones to refill your magic, and it uses so much of your blue bar per cast and everything. It just it really wasn't as viable. But again, like their loss there was a gain in the melee combat because now you have weapon skills and those can be so interesting. So it was definitely a trade-off, And some could also argue the old magic system could make casters crazy overpowered. So, there's that.
Sam, what do you think of Dark Souls 3's story? Do you know anything about it?
Most of the time with these games, I don't. And then I sit down and I watch like a 15-minute YouTube video explaining it, and then I still don't know what's going on. I think I watched like 6 videos on the plot of Bloodborne, and I'm still not 100% sure. Also, not having played the first one, like I know there's a lot of connection and like areas that you can go back to.
1 and 3, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to playing through 1 to kind of get that backstory. But no, all I know is I have to kill.
You're
I have to kill
the
things.
Ashen one.
Yep.
One really great thing about Dark Souls, and all of this for all of them, it doesn't take you as an idiot as the player. You have to, if you want to know about the story, you have to earn it. You have to read item text. You have to talk to NPCs. You have to pay attention during cinematics. You have to notice the names of the levels that you're going into. Like Farron Keep is a good example. At the beginning, they talk about Farron's Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers. You fight the Abyss Watchers. I really like, that you kind of have to find that out on your own, and it makes it more mysterious, and it feels like you actually are in this long dead world, discovering all of these like long forgotten things. Like all of these things are dead or dust, and that's a theme that reoccurs throughout the whole game. I love that about Dark Souls.
Yep. It's very mysterious. Want to know more, and it's almost like every character you talk to, everything you read, every cinematic, it's very poetic. And it's like I've watched the intro a bunch of times, and I just love watching it. Like, it's beautiful. I love the language. I love the music, and it doesn't matter how many times I watch it. I'm like, I still don't really know what's, but I love it. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, still to this day, in the first cutscene when Yorm the Giant stands up and kind of does that like silent yell, and all the embers like light up in his body, gives me chills still. It's such a cool image. Yeah. And that's all the bosses are awesome. So real quick to wrap it up on Dark Souls, favorite boss, least favorite boss.
For 3?
Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3.
Someone else can start.
Go ahead. Sam, you want to go? I'll go first. So my favorite boss would be a tie between the Nameless King, which is in an area that is completely missable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll add, but it's one of the best areas in the game. Amazing boss. Tied with, I would say, the Abyss Watchers in in the swamp there. They are really cool. And least favorite. Oh man. Oh my God. The what's he called? He screams at you so badly. He looks like a Bloodborne boss.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. That's what I was gonna say.
When you're waiting outside of his room, the boss room, there's this awful like wailing.
Yeah.
It's not the Nameless King. It sounds something like that. I can't remember what he's called.
Yeah, it's the one that screams at you. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm totally blanking on this guy. What area is he in?
He's after you kill the dancer.
Okay.
At the top of the steps, you go up the ladder and you go left. It's the boss in that area.
Oh, and the Dragon King, the
Dragon Armor.
Is he the one with the sorceries in the swamp?
Yes.
And he's also, and what does he call his little imaginary cat?
I can't remember.
Yeah, he's always talking.
Yeah, that one.
And he's like stroking something that's not there and talking to it.
You go to one area and it's
completely insane.
Armor. Yeah.
And he's
blind. He's also blind.
He's blind.
Anyway, so that's my least favorite. What about you guys?
That's definitely my least favorite for sure. That's one I was gonna say. My favorite, there's a couple. I really like we just fought him. The big skeleton that like comes out of the
Oh yeah.
the
Okay.
vicar,
darkness and grabs you
the
with the
priest,
hands.
the pontiff Sullivan. No,
Pontus Sullivan.
No.
We just
No. The big skeleton, and you have to break.
yeah,
his
no,
little bracelet.
I got it wrong. He's some sort of churchy figure. He's not Pontiff
Yeah.
Sullivan. He is.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. It
He's
was
the-
one of.
He's the
It was-
boss of Irithel Dungeon. I think?
I know exactly who he is. He's got the 2 bracelets on one on the other. He makes the dark mist. You touched the chalice before. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. He has some sort of title.
They all have title. They're all same thing. But
Matt,
yeah, I
I
really
will
like
look for that. Why don't you give me your favorite and least favorite?
No, I got it pulled up right. High Lord Wolmir.
There
That's
you go.
who he is.
Yeah.
And I'm just refreshing on names. Favorite. Shit. Shit.
You give me your least favorite?
You know what? My favorite is actually going to be the Lord of Cinder. The final boss. It's just such a... The first Dark Souls holds a special place in my heart. So it was a nice callback to that. Specifically, I mean, it's a great, 3-phase fight?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And it's just, the setting is so, this is the final boss. You're in this weird, sort of, surreal kind of hellscape of embers and whatever. But it calls back to the killing of the first flame from the first one.
I like that his second phase is like a whole bunch of move sets that you see in the game.
Yeah, and
Which is really cool.
some of his moves are actually moves from the final boss of the first Dark Souls. And right towards the end, I think in the third phase, the final boss fight in the first Dark Souls was kind of unexpected musically, because all the things are kind of bombastic, anxious, edge of your seat music, and the final boss in the first Dark Souls is just kind of this soft, sort of sad piano, very gentle, and that comes in the final. That music shows up behind everything in the third fight, and it was just such a great final boss fight, send off for the series. I know there'd be DLC, so it wasn't actually the last boss fight, but as it kind of wraps up your game, I would say that one. And then my least favorite, I don't know, I kind of like all of them. Oh, by the way, it was the Consumed King.
There you go. That's the one.
That was the one you hate.
Yeah.
I can't say he's my least favorite because I liked the way he was talking, and I liked his little mad mumblings. I don't know. Probably Deacons of the Deep.
Yeah, that one's kind of shitty.
Yeah, I mean, the first few times when
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out, there's all these guys and you're trying to figure it out, it's kind of interesting, and then you're like, oh, I gotta hit the red one, okay.
Yeah.
But once you know what to do in that fight, it's just sort of busy work, you know?
Yeah.
Because of the number of enemies, it would be too cheap if they had any kind of super effective attack, because then you'd probably get blindsided by it and killed. So they're all kind of harmless. You just have to pick your spots and rush in and then rush out. And there's not all that much to it.
That one doesn't really feel like a boss fight.
I was going to
No,
say also the Dancer, because even though the Dancer is fucking gorgeous, it's just so unpredictable. And I raged so many times fighting the Dancer. But
It's a scary fight.
It's a good boss fight.
That's one of those.
Especially if you guys didn't want to do it right off the bat.
One of those great Souls boss fights where my first couple times doing it, I was very intimidated, scared in real life to approach the boss at all.
Yeah.
Because I thought I would just get one-shotted for sure, and he's very sporadic and all over the place. I'll leave with one more thing before we move on to the news. There's 2 DLCs for Dark Souls 3, and in Dark Souls fashion, they are as good, if not better, than the main game, and they have some of the best boss fights in the whole series.
Yeah.
So check those out too. All right, now it's time to stay a while and listen. So we got an update from last week's news. We talked about the Unreal 5 engine demo last week. I just saw a little snippet on Twitter that said that particular demo that was cause of a lot of discourse was going to be playable at GDC, which was canceled because of coronavirus. Do you think if people were actually able to put a PlayStation controller in their hand or Xbox or whatever it would have been and play that thing on something connected with an HDMI cable, they'd be fighting about it so much?
Yes.
I think two things would happen. People would definitely be kind of torn on how impressed they were, but also we'd have this whole other conversation about the PlayStation 5 controller because they would have had that in their hands for the first time too.
You think? You know what? I want to say it probably would have been like an Xbox Elite controller or a PS5. I don't think they would have given them the new PlayStation controller.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think there would have been as much. Some things would still remain, like that little narrow loading passage.
Here's my question about that, because people like to talk shit about that part. Do you think, because it was clear with the demo, what they made was like a Assassin's Creed Uncharted like Horizon copy, right? That's what they wanted to
I was
purvey.
going to say Tomb Raider, but yeah.
Sure, Tomb Raider as well. All those third-person action adventure games. Do you think that part was just put in there by some, dev that just thought he was putting another trope of an action adventure game in the demo, and that it wasn't actually a load screen? It was just that's what Nathan Drake does all the time.
Yeah. So what they actually said in response to that was that the purpose of that was supposed to show how good things looked up close.
Mm-hmm.
And there was supposed to be something in the presentation about that, but it accidentally got cut, and they forgot to say it at that time. Which, if the tone of my voice is giving away my skepticism, yeah, like that was pretty. Like you'd think someone would be like, "Why are we doing this?"
Yeah.
Two, the lighting wasn't very good, so at that part, it's kind of a dim part, so you really can't see the textures that well that they're zoomed in on. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, maybe when they were designing it, and they were like, we have to have it ready for this date. At some point, it was a loading screen. And then they worked it out, and now it isn't. And they're telling the truth. But I feel like the only reason you put that in, because we've seen that in a bunch of games, that is typically something you do to hide a loading screen. You zoom in on a small little environment, and then you can load the big environment you're going to come out, and you still get to play through it, so you don't know it's a loading screen. And I feel like everything about that design says it was designed as a loading screen. Whether or not it's actually necessary, maybe they were using an old SSD, and they just finally got the dev kit, and they were told it would run seamlessly, no loading on this new SSD, but they had that as a backup. Like, what happens if the showtime comes and we don't have the dev kit in our hands, we don't have it working, or there's some kind of like coding glitch that they were trying to work on, and they're just like, we'll have this as a backup so our presentation goes seamlessly. So I'm not saying it actually was loading during that time, but I don't buy the whole like, yeah, we just wanted to give you a close-up of these dark little textures and we forgot to mention it in the presentation,
Yeah. Did you have anything to add, Sam?
I think it's one of those things where I'm going to play the other side here. I think people who want to find something to complain about will find something to complain about.
Yeah.
I like those little parts in games. Loading screens are not. So like what? We're never going to get to crawl through a small space again, or like Nate Drake in the next Uncharted is only going to be in like big open worlds and we're never going to have to crawl through like a tiny little cave to get somewhere. Like it's a cool mechanic. And if it is used for loading screens as well, like awesome. But I mean, I don't think every single time that's going to be in a game going forward is just covering a loading screen. And like, even if it is, who cares? Like that's part of the fun of the levels sometimes. So I don't think if people had actually got to play it, like I think people have already made their mind up about a lot of things, and it doesn't matter you see this with movies, you see this with TV shows, you see this with everything. Like, people have to have an opinion about something.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times you can nitpick anything to the point where you're like, I hate this now. This is not good. So I don't think it being put in people's hands. I think people who already have chosen to be unimpressed would continue to find reasons to continue to be unimpressed. Yeah. So no, I think people would still be just as divided.
So I'll add, before I knew that was a dev trick, I was probably playing Uncharted 4, I'm assuming. And like the first time I experienced that, like Nate going through like a narrow passageway. I never played any of the Tomb Raider games. So that was the first time I experienced that. I thought it was really cool. I thought, I was like, oh, look how he's interacting with the environment, and he's getting I'm so close to like the character model, and look how good the rock looks. Like,
It feels so claustrophobic.
I love that. And you know what? You do feel a little claustrophobic. It works. It helps with the immersion. That being said, I will say that I think that them putting that in the demo for Unreal 5, either, if it was an actual loading screen or just because it was a popular video game trope, I think that was a bad idea. That was a misstep. And they should have known that the geek internet community would freak out about it and pick it apart.
I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat, actually. Before we go, I just found that out. It was one of you two guys that was talking about it, like literally less than a month ago. It was probably Matt.
It was another podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had up until this day made it 31 years through life and did not know that was a dev trick.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
and most people don't.
And it's so much better than like the old ones. Like, Chris, I don't know if you remember playing through Half-Life back in the day.
One?
Yeah. And
vaguely, I remember two better.
And one had, and two, they both did this. Though two was a little better at it than one. They would have very clear loading screens, like the game would pause and say loading. But they like to put them in to make it feel like, other than that, like you're just seamlessly moving through an area. So like in the Half-Life days, the common thing was like a weird U-turn hallway where you'd leave one room and you'd go into a hallway where you can turn left. And then you would kind of go down the hall and you'd lose sight of the entrance to that hallway and you couldn't see the exit. So it would either be like an S shape or like a U-turn shape. And when you're at the middle of that and it couldn't see both ends, that's where they put the loading screen so that you didn't see the world load in front of you or behind you. And that was like an earlier version of that trick, like a late 90s version of that trick, where like, there's no way we're not pausing for loading. You're going to notice that. But let's not let you see the world pop out behind you and pop in front of you. So we'll put you through this thing. And this trick is just an evolution of that, where they put you in a tight place where the character body blocks and like you're all jammed in and you can't see what's in front of you, so it can pop in. And you can't see what's behind you because of the camera angle, so it can pop out. So, yeah, there's lots of little tricks like that. And I think I found out that one was a loading trick a little while ago. And I noticed that for some reason, even though there was very little on screen, I feel like back on the PS3, like the performance was always kind of shit. And I'm like, how come you could do that huge open area so well, but now that I'm in this tiny thing, like my frame rate is like dropping a bit, and then I'm like, oh, they're loading. Got it.
Yeah. Well, you gotta hand it to Valve pioneers, because I definitely didn't know that when I was playing Half-Life 2. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, they would always kind of hide, misdirection.
All right. So moving on. This month, or not this month actually, the month of April, that's the month we're going to be covering. Video game sales were up by 37%. 37% higher than they've ever been, obviously because of coronavirus. So I have the NPD list in front of me now from April of the top 20 games. We're going to see if we can guess the top 10.
And these are physical sales, yes?
These are physical sales. They don't track digital sales. But the actual sales numbers are still massive, so it's still a large portion of the games people are buying. So what do you guys think? What's going to be in the top here for the month of April?
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing is there. It is number 3 on the list. Surprising. I thought it was going to be number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, Animal Crossing is number 3. What else?
Doom Eternal?
Let's see. Doom Eternal. No, that came out in March, didn't it?
It did, but I thought it would still be selling well.
Oh, you know what? It's not. Didn't make top 10.
Okay.
Let me see if it's in the top 20.
This isn't just games that came out in April, right? Because Animal Crossing also came out in March.
No, this is just best sales for that month.
Just sales.
Yeah, best sales. I'm sorry to say that Doom Eternal is not on this list.
No, I mean, that kind of makes sense. It had a really, really good launch, so I feel like everyone who picked it up, and now it's just going to be like a few stragglers.
Yeah, fair.
All right, what else you guys got? What are some other popular games?
Every popular game I'm thinking of is like digital. Off the top
Throw
of
it
my
at me.
head. Terraria.
I'm trying to think what I got.
No Terraria.
No.
Sam? Think bigger. Think bigger.
Call of Duty?
Yep. Call of Duty. Modern Warfare is number 2 on the list.
It's always in.
FIFA.
FIFA is not on the list. The 2 sports games in the top 10 are Madden. Madden NFL 20 and MLB The Show. Surprising that FIFA's not on there because it usually is.
Yeah, it was just a shot in the dark there.
Yeah. But we got 2 more of them there. I'll give you a hint. This one makes the top 10 in the NPDs every month for like the last 5 or 6 years.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Grand Theft Auto 5, man. Number 5. Still.
Mm-hmm.
That's bananas.
Why is that game so popular?
It just is.
There's no end of stuff you can do. They keep putting content out, repeatedly. It's bananas, and it's super fun. It is really fun.
Yeah. I checked just the other day. I don't remember exactly why, but like on Steam, there are still 10 times as many people playing Grand Theft Auto 5 as playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a newer game.
Yeah. And speaking of Red Dead 2, that's also on the list. What place do you guys think it is?
Oh, is it top 5 or is it just on the list?
It's in the top 10.
Number
We're only doing top 10.
7.
Yeah, actually, sounds about right. I guess I'll say number 9.
Red Dead 2 is number 10.
Oh.
Number 9 is Madden. Number 8 is MLB The Show.
Okay.
And we got 2 more big games on there that we should mention. One of them is the top selling game, and the other one is number 6.
Are they new releases?
Yes.
Newer? No.
New.
Is there one of them new Pokemons?
No, it's not Pokemon.
I don't know.
Sam wants it to be, probably. What else you got?
Physical sales.
JRPG fans rejoice.
Oh, Final Fantasy 7.
Oh, Final Fantasy. Yeah.
7 Remake is number 1. Best-selling game of April. And the last one, it's rainy outside, so I'll use my umbrella.
Oh, Resident Evil.
There you go. Wow. Why did Sam get that before you, Matt?
Because we were playing Terraria the other day, and when it started to rain, the slimes started using umbrellas. And so
I
when
already told you Terraria was.
I know, but when you said that, I just thought of Terraria, and then I was just thinking of Terraria and not other games.
Matt's still hoping.
That's funny.
Sure. Are you sure it's not Terraria?
I mean, Terraria, it was digital, but Terraria did have a crazy little bump there. In fact, Terraria set the number 3 record for most concurrent players on Steam. Or number 4. It took Fallout 4 was like number 4. It was like Dota, Counter-Strike, Grand Theft Auto 5 are the top 3. But
yeah, they
when
sold
Terraria,
something like 30 million copies or something like that.
30 million copies before this latest patch. And then with this latest patch, it became the most bought thing and actually had more concurrent players for a few days than GTA 5, which is always up there. So it it had a really big month for a game that's 9 years old and is only $10.
Yeah. I had a weird question about this list and stuff. So I know we don't I know they don't take digital sales into account. All of the games I bought so far, I've spent about $500 on games in 2020 so far,
Same.
and not a single one has been a physical copy. Like, am I doing the developers a disservice by not going out and buying the game? Like, if it's the same price and it's like, if
I
it's
don't
some
think so.
copy and recorded, like, I guess I don't understand what is the point of this list
They still get their cut
then.
because people like numbers and they like to rank things.
Yeah.
That's
But
why.
like they're not accurate.
It's just I think
numbers.
also what plays into it is that most developers or studios don't want to give out their digital sales. They don't do it. Nintendo doesn't. Sony doesn't. So these are the video game sales we have.
For reasons.
Yeah, for whatever reason. Who knows?
It's just
Nope.
such a weird.
I
It's
just,
such a
what
weird
the
concept.
fuck happened? I clicked on something weird. Never mind. It's over. You might have to edit that.
Ignore Matt's what the fuck. Moving
Yep.
on. Speaking of what the fuck, see that's a nice transition for you.
It's good.
id Software adds de nouveau anti-cheat to Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal subsequently gets review bomb down to 54% on Steam.
Sure
id
did.
Software removes de nouveau anti-cheat soon after. Matt, I guess the question I have for you is, de nouveau anti-cheat that bad? Are people freaking out for nothing?
Well, actually, here's the thing. De nouveau anti-cheat is actually... De nouveau's been around for a very long time.
I recognize the name for sure.
Can you guys hear that beeping?
Nope.
Good. Yeah, so
Continue.
de nouveau has been around as a very, very long time as an anti-tamper software. So basically anti-piracy. It basically gets included in with the game, and it makes it much harder to reverse engineer anything, because it just like it's technical. But so that's been around for a long time, and people have not been a fan of it. For a variety of reasons, some more legitimate than others. One of the legitimate ones is it has been known with certain games to affect performance. So your game will run worse with this than it would without.
Mhm.
It also makes games very hard to crack, though there have been some times where, within 2 days of launch, it gets cracked anyways, and then there's a pirated version. So the anti-cheat is a new thing from them. And people's big complaint with it is that it installs on the kernel level. So basically, it is right there, basically right on the operating system, or even like slightly lower, like right there on that level of your system. So it is right into your nitty gritty. It has access to everything.
Okay.
There's no way you can kind of control what it looks at. Now,
So it's very invasive.
I mean, it's actually that it's doing this, but it isn't invasive. Like, you might not even know you have it, and people get really upset about the fact that something has access to that level of your system without you even knowing that you've given it that. And that was another thing with this Doom thing, the fact that it wasn't included, so people could buy it and be like, "Oh, it doesn't have that thing I hate." People call it malware and spyware, and I don't know if that's really justified, because I went looking around, like, has de nouveau ever really fucked up, and have they ever actually like been abused? Like, people have used that as a backdoor into someone's system. The only thing I could find was back in 2017, they got hacked and a whole bunch of user data got released. But other than that, I haven't actually.
People don't like that.
People don't like that. But I'm kind of in a weird place here, because I really don't like programs that install themselves without my knowledge on my computer, especially ones that have access to my sensitive personal data. You know what I hate more than that? People who cheat in multiplayer games. So it's kind of like, and that's why it was installed this close. Like, Valorant had a different technology, but had a very similar anti-cheat fiasco, because it starts at boot. De nouveau for Doom starts when you start the game and closes when you close the game, but it's installed at that level. So any cheat that a user would add would be at a higher level, and it can basically detect it. So, you know, if you get like a rootkit, like that, I'm talking about stuff that I knew about years ago, and I'm going to forget a lot of terms. But basically, by getting that low and that into your system, it can basically look, to use a terrible metaphor, it can look out at everything on a higher level that isn't that deep into your system, where theoretically cheats would exist. So, because the goal with cheat programs is usually to install them low, often activating at boot. So any anti-cheat system that comes in after accepts the cheat as part of the normal operation of the computer and doesn't see it as an extra program that's altering how things function. Mm-hmm. So they get even lower so they can identify it. Yeah, you guys can read up on this. I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, but
that's okay. One of us had to try. So long story short, they took it off. It's gone. It's interesting to me that something like a review bomb, which is, you know, is orchestrated by probably a small group of people, all doing it at the same time, could have such sway with developers. And we've seen that like lots before in the last couple of years. That happens now. Games get review bombed into oblivion, and then the developers do what the fans want eventually.
Yeah.
And I don't know like how big of a group this, you know, these people actually represent of the Doom fan base. I bet it's not very big.
No, I mean, I don't think it.
I think it's a loud minority type of thing.
Oh, definitely. Unfortunately, I wonder how many people will go in and change their review now. I feel like not enough.
No.
I think, you know, any copy they're going to sell of Doom is probably, that's all they're going to sell until they come out with that DLC, which I'm not sure when it's coming out in another couple months.
We should make it next week's bet. Or there's an idea. Next week's bet should be, what would the Steam recent review on Doom Eternal be?
We can do it for 2 weeks from now because we already have next week's bet.
No, I mean, like,
it's written down on a piece of paper.
No. That's what I meant. Like next week when we make our bet should be, we should check in, because in Steam you can just click on your review and you can change. It's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. There's no percentage, and you can switch it at any time. So a lot of those reviews in the review bomb said if they remove it, it's like, I love this game, I've played this much, however I cannot recommend it because of this new thing, and I won't change this until they remove it. Give them a week, let them remove it, and then see what happens. How many of those reviewers will go back and say, oh, now it's that game I said I loved? I bet not a lot. And I think the damage is kind of done here.
I guess we'll make that the bet.
This and we'll see what happens. Have nice things.
All right, really quick, I stumbled across a list of the best-selling video games of all time, starting in 1989 to 2019. So it goes pretty far back. I won't have you guess them or anything. I just want to read them off because it's an interesting list. So number 1 is Minecraft. Best-selling game of all time. It is sold 181,767,331 copies. Minecraft.
Jesus.
A fairly simple game. Number 2, Grand Theft Auto 5. No big surprise. GTA 5 has sold 113,390,000 copies. Number 3, this one surprised me actually. PUBG.
That doesn't surprise me.
Right? There's no other battle royales on this list. It's that one, and I feel like it's not even the most popular one.
Well, it's because Fortnite is free to play, so it doesn't have sales.
Good point. Number 4, Tetris.
Beautiful.
60,883,942. So that's substantially lower than Minecraft. And number 5, Wii Fit. I think we've probably all had our hands on Wii Fit at one point.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, you know.
Come with the Wii?
I believe so. That was Wii Sports.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't think Wii Fit came with the Wii, but it's on here. 44 million. And then I'll just do number 6 because it's interesting considering how poorly it was received. But I guess it's on lots of platforms. So Diablo 3 is at number 6 of all time. 41,814,859 copies. Pretty neat, eh?
Neat.
All right. Last thing on the list. This one's interesting. Chris Nolan shows his new trailer for his upcoming film Tenet, which looks really good. I did not watch the trailer because I don't want any more of that movie spoiled for me. In Fortnite. Like, you had a movie theater set up in Fortnite, and you saw like Jeff Keighley's face and Christopher Nolan's face. This was a Summer Games Fest thing, apparently. Like on the screen, and they're like, "Here, watch the new Tenet trailer," and like 11 million people watched the trailer for Tenet.
It's like YouTube, but you can't do it on your own time.
That's a lot more views than that trailer would have got on YouTube.
I know.
Or any other platform. I think it was a genius marketing strategy. And really, my question is, what do you guys think? What do you think this means for the future of video games, just as like an alternative media source? Because Fortnite is a game. It's a battle royale. It's fun to play. It's pretty bare bones, but people like it. But using it to show movie trailers to promote things, like I know in a couple of weeks, Chris Nolan is going to show an entire movie. He's teased, probably going to be one of the Batman ones. You can just sit there for 2 hours and watch it in Fortnite on your computer. So what do you think this is going to mean for the future of video game media? Yes, Sam?
I have very strong feelings about this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I feel like from the minute I wake up to the minute I close my eyes at night, somebody somewhere is trying to sell me something in some new creative way.
Mhm.
So I don't play Fortnite. If I did, and it was a game that I was very like passionate about, and then it started going in this direction, I would not be very happy. This in general, like I agree that it's a really cool way to use the medium. How it's going to fare for other video games, I don't like it. Like if I'm playing the next God of War and like halfway through Kratos like goes down a river and then there's an ad for another game, I'm gonna lose my shit. It's just video games for me have always been an escape from my day-to-day. So if you start bringing in the stressors of my outside life into my video game, I'm going to be very, very upset. Like I deleted Facebook because I can't even talk to anyone without an ad popping up mid-conversation. I can't go on any website without something being interrupted. You can't go on Instagram without seeing like, oh, hey, yeah, I just wanted to show you my new workout plan. Also, here's who I'm sponsored by. Like, shut the fuck up for 5 minutes and don't try to sell me something. So that is my opinion on it. I don't like it.
Can I just get a side thing in there?
I want to pose a question quickly to Sam before we get to your opinion on it, Matt. So, Sam, you have Fortnite loaded on your hard drive. You play it occasionally. You hear that George Lucas is making Star Wars Episode 11, Return of Emperor Palpatine, and he's going to show the exclusive teaser trailer in Fortnite that night. Do you log into Fortnite to watch that trailer?
Yep. I would, and I would be very upset, and I would send a very angry letter to
begrudgingly
George
watch it.
Lucas, and I would see it, and I'd be like, I'm gonna see it, and I'm gonna watch it. Like, I saw the first Twilight movie in theaters because there was supposed to be a Harry Potter trailer before it.
Oh, I've done that for sure. Not for Twilight.
Yeah, fun fact, they didn't play the Harry Potter trailer, so I just had to sit there and watch Twilight for no reason. But no, I would log in and I would watch it, and I don't like I don't like when something I love is being taken and held hostage and I'm forced to like watch it in a manner that I don't want to watch. Like I don't like when things are exclusive to this system. Because it brings up a lot of other things, like maybe somebody doesn't have a PS4, but they have a PS3, and it's like, well, this is going to be exclusive to this system, and you're like, well, I can't afford to upgrade, so this is just something that like
it's on all platforms, just FYI, all platforms.
I know Fortnite is. No, but not the George Lucas trailer about Palpatine.
No,
that is only on Fortnite.
All right, Matt, what did you have to say about this?
Okay, first of all, I wanted to touch on Sam's point about how ads are everywhere and videos are always popping up and whatever. I was having a small technical issue before this stream, and my biggest pet peeve is the fact that everything has to be a fucking video now. Like, I was literally looking, I was certain there was a setting and a drop down somewhere in some menu that I could hit to solve this problem. And I had to skim through a 3-minute video of some chonky bitch going on about how for her channel and she likes this and she likes that and all that. And then I finally found the 20 seconds where she's like, go here and hit this. And I'm like, thank you. Why can't that be written down? You know, if I see a news article I like and I go and then I realize the article isn't there, it's just a headline and a video. And it's like, I can't watch a video right now, but I can skim, I can read. Where is the written word online? It's more data efficient. It's so much easier. And 90% of what tutorial videos are trying to tell you on YouTube could be written in a fucking paragraph. Just write it down. Give me my information. Stop making a full video. Okay. Anyways, Fortnite.
We're both very upset.
I got pre-flustered, and now I have to talk about Fortnite. This is going to get volatile. Fortnite is just basically that kid who will do anything for attention. Eat worms, whatever, mixed with that person who just, like, shows up and, like, offers to cut your lawn for $10 and you're like, no, I'm okay. And then they just start giving you other services. And it's just like, please leave me alone. I'm not giving you any money. I know you'll do anything for it. Just stop. Just stop. PUBG, top selling battle royale on that list. You know, there's a reason that Fortnite's a battle royale. They developed it as a stupid cooperative construction zombie wave defense game. No one wanted it. But PUBG was selling like hotcakes, so they just ripped it off. They took their entire idea. I remember actually, because I like co-op games, and I like building stuff. So I was actually kind of interested in the original concept of Fortnite. I remember when it was announced at an E3 one year. I remember seeing a little bit of gameplay a year later. I remember it coming out. Yeah. And
Save the World,
well, no, it used to just be called Fortnite. Because there was no need for Save the World to distinguish it from Battle Royale, which they whipped up very quickly after to rip off the popularity of another game, but free, so the kids can have it. Also, let's make it cartoony.
Yeah. Genius.
Yeah.
Run it on mobile.
You know what? And like, yeah, as a money-making machine, it's fantastic. And all this stuff, okay, you know what? You're tired of the game? Just come in and watch a game trailer. Maybe play a few rounds after. Check out that guy next to you watching the trailer. He's got a sick skin. Where's your parents' credit card? I can't see, like, if some's trailer I really, really wanted to see was exclusive to Fortnite, I'd find out for how long and just wait. I'll wait.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that starved for content that I would actually install Fortnite and go in. And also, I kind of have to wonder, like, can people, like, grief each other and troll each other in these digital theaters? Can they shoot each other?
No, they turn that off when they're showing these things, so you can't fuck with other people.
And can you talk to them? Like,
yeah, you can chat, you can emote, you can do things like that, but you just can't kill somebody.
Okay. I don't see the appeal. Like, I remember there was a digital concert in Fortnite, and I'm like, that's fucking stupid. And then now there's trailers, and I'm like, I mean, it's clearly working for them. It's getting people in, but I mean, just throw that on the long list of ways humanity has disappointed me in 2020 so far. You know, it's just like, yeah, people like it and it's great, but I'm not on board. And it's not like I'm bitter about it. I'm just more like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. You know, it's just like
things. Yeah, it falls into that category of like, is it effective and is it working? Yes. Is it also in bad taste and gross? Yeah.
Yeah, it's working. It shouldn't be. It is. You know, and, you know, maybe this is just people who really just need something remotely social and don't have it through other means. And watching a trailer with a bunch of other people is just a thing to do. But,
well, I'm okay with it as long as it stays in Fortnite. Like, I know, like, the original question that we were talking about was, like, what does this mean for other video games? Like, as long as it stays here and it's like, this is a Fortnite thing, cool. Make that a Fortnite thing. Just do not let this infect the rest of the game.
I don't think that will be a problem.
I
I really have good faith that that type of thing will stay in games like Fortnite or PUBG or Apex Legends, you know, games that people are not paying for, that are not narrative driven. You're not going to see an ad for whatever, you know, some protein powder in your next God of War game. It's not going to happen.
Not.
People would shit if that happened. There'd be
Yeah.
like a max S, you know what I mean? Like, talk about review bombs. So I don't think that's ever going to be a problem, at least in my opinion.
Fingers crossed.
Funny thing, I just had a flash. I remember back when putting real world advertisements in a video game seemed cool. There was back Battlefield 2142.
Yeah.
And I think maybe even Battlefield 2 had it.
Great game.
Both great games, and they did it very non-obtrusively, where in like urban maps, there would be billboards. Like they were part of the scenery. You could climb up on them and get like good sniper positions and all that. And they just sort of non-obtrusively would put actual advertisements on those billboards. But it didn't ruin anything because like you're having a battle in a city. Of course someone would be advertising on that billboard, right?
That's
like
different though.
It
like Fortnite is a multiplayer shooter.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well, no,
forgivable in that sense.
Yeah, like it's just the way it's done. Like it's not just in the background, something you can notice. Now in Fortnite, it's like, stop the game, look at this trailer, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas in the Battlefield days, it was just like, and it was also a novelty. It was like, oh, you can do this over the internet and change. It was neat. And obviously it's gone to less cool places. But
do you guys want to talk about our top 10 favorite games of all time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
So we've been going week to week listing our favorite games personally of all time. We are currently on number 4. So we're just going to be talking about number 4, 3, and 2 this week. Just to go through the list so far, we'll start with me. My number 10, Super Mario World. Number 9, GTA San Andreas. Number 8, Doom 2. Number 7, Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. Number 6, Red Dead Redemption 2. 5 is Resident Evil 4. And the rest will be revealed shortly.
Shoot. My list was getting really messy.
That's okay if you can't find it, Matt.
Yeah, I can't.
Do you want me to recap?
Yeah.
Recap as well? Okay. So my number 10 was Metroid Prime for the Wii. Number 9 was Mass Effect 2.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8 was Okami. Number 7 was Doom from 2016. Number 6 is Borderlands 2. And number 5 was Assassin's Creed 2.
Cool. All right. While we're waiting for Matt, I guess I'll get you to start, Sam, with your number 4
All right.
favorite game of all time.
My number 4 game of all time also happens to be the top 6 in sales of all time for video games.
Oh, nice.
Diablo 3.
An excellent game.
Yeah. So Diablo 3, it's probably one of the games I've put the most hours in. I actually just reinstalled it this morning because I want to play it again. I would have probably I had originally put Diablo 2 on. And then when I sat down and was really honest with myself, it was 3. I've played 3 the most. I loved 3. Mostly just because I've never been a PC person. So like I had a computer back in like grade 6 and I had it for a couple of years and that was it. Other than that, once I got the PlayStation, I've just been 100% console going forward. But yeah, Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls, amazingly fun. I played through that game probably about 12 or 15 times. I've got like 2 different characters of each class in there. I've played it through on tons of different modes. I played it through on hardcore. I played it through on every torment level. Once you max out your characters, there's so much customization with them. There's so much you can do. They have the rifts as well. So there's like dungeons and there's bounties. It was one of those games where it was a grind to platinum it, but it didn't feel like a grind. Like sitting down and doing 500 bounties, I'm like, okay, this will probably take me about 26 hours. Cool, I'll do like an hour a day for the next month and get it done.
the game is a grind. That's the whole game.
It is, and I love grinding. So it's
Yeah.
just it's all the things that I love, and like the music's great, the story's great. It was so much fun. Yeah. So Diablo 3 is my number 4.
Cool. Matt, if you don't have your list, we'll get it from you next week when we get your number 1.
Yeah,
I was
90% certain I knew what it was. I'm a little frustrated.
Why don't you give us your number 4?
All right, my number 4. It was a real toss-up between 2 Relic strategy games, but I ended up with Company of Heroes.
Okay.
Honorable mention to the Dawn of War franchise, but the first Company of Heroes, I mean, nowadays I'd play 2 just because of some quality of life improvements, but Company of Heroes was just a fantastic and fresh and astoundingly good looking at the time real-time strategy game. I've always been a bit of a World War II buff, so this was perfect, and it really took kind of the micro ideas that games like Dota and Warcraft 3 had used, and really just sort of took an interesting spin with them, where it wasn't just about like using abilities and all this. Like facing was a thing. It ran on a modified Unreal Engine, so in most strategy games, you know, you tell the soldier to shoot the Zergling, and it's like the soldier does this much damage per second, and so, you know, Zergling health goes down, and it's steady ticks. It's all the same. In Company of Heroes, it actually just made the little model take a shot at the other model, and if anything blocked that shot, like cover or whatever, no damage is done. There's a little bit of an RNG factor. Tanks take more damage from the rear where the armor is weaker. Time to kill. If you get an anti-tank gun and hide it in a bush and the tank goes by, you can take it out in 2 shots. Whereas, you know, a rifleman company will just shoot at it all day and the bullets will just plink off. The tactics were great. The sound was great. The missions were great. So much fun playing multiplayer in LAN settings with me and my friends. Great expansions. Just, you know, it's an exciting game. It's as exciting as an action game while being a strategy game. And I don't know any other strategy game that actually hits that peak.
Yeah, I've even played some Company of Heroes with you in a LAN setting, even though RTS is definitely not my favorite genre.
Yeah, when you blow up a tank, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, it's good. It's a great game.
Yeah. Dawn of War came before that, and that's why it almost made the list, but I don't feel it was a little more traditional, and there are better traditional RTSs.
All right. My number 4 is Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a heavy game. The atmosphere is heavy. Wherever you go in Bloodborne, you feel the weight of this essentially insane, because that's what has happened, this insane drunk world just pushing down on you. You know, it's the lighting, it's the sound. You know, you don't even need to be close to a lantern to just hear its ambient kind of like noise the whole time. You always hear, you can hear these blood drunk people constantly moaning and groaning and screaming, and people that have completely lost their minds. So at the same time, it's also highly polished. I think Dark Souls 3 is a very good looking game. I like the aesthetic of Bloodborne better. The gothic horror angle, I like better than the high fantasy. All the textures are really like nice and shiny and highly polished. The lighting is amazing. Also, really interesting lore. As someone who grew up reading H.P. Lovecraft and really loving cosmic horror, the fact that this, you know, the main beat of the game is cosmic horror. Essentially, these people find an old one. Is it old one, or they find like an ancient being
Yes.
underneath the school, in dungeons. They call them the chalice dungeons, where they find chalices full of this being's blood, and they give it out to the town, and they become blood drunk and go insane. And that's where the hunters come in, who are also being infused with the blood to be given like heightened senses and strength, and they're set out to hunt these men who eventually turn into beasts because they can't hold the blood in their bodies. It's too it's vibrating too high for them, and the idea of these ancient beings, kind of like older than time itself, that if you look upon them, they're either horrible to behold or they're the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and either way you're going to go insane. I find that really poetic and just like super dark. I love that. And as far as gameplay goes, Bloodborne has a ton of weapons to play with and a lot of different builds. The great thing about Bloodborne, and going into Bloodborne from Dark Souls 2, I believe, I think it was one before that, it was really cool because every weapon in Bloodborne is 2 weapons. They each have their main mechanic and then a trick version of them. You hit L2 and it'll switch. So if you have the Kirk hammer, you either have a giant 2-handed hammer that actually picks your character up because it's so heavy when you swing it, or you can break the handle off, which becomes a sword for quick attacks. And there's lots of examples of weapons like that. But whatever Miyazaki did to fine-tune the combat, you really feel the weight of that weapon and any other heavy weapon like that. And if you're using a quick weapon, you really feel like you're cutting through and slashing through these abominations quickly, and it's very satisfying. The sound effects are bang on. Your character will slowly get just drenched in blood because all you're doing is going around and you're hunting these abominations, and you're killing them en masse. So there'll be times when you're playing and you look at your character and you're just dripping in blood, like head to toe, like crimson, shiny red. As someone who appreciates good violence in video games, I love that. What else? I made some notes this time so I could get all my points through. Lots of secrets. Bloodborne is very similar to Dark Souls in the fact that it makes you earn the story, and it makes you earn some of the best parts in the game. So Cainhurst Castle is a really good example. You can completely miss Cainhurst Castle. You don't need to do it to beat the game, but it has this like Dracula vibe to it. And the only way that you find Cainhurst Castle is wandering very far off the beaten path in one of the forest levels, taking a few secret passages up a whole bunch of steps, and you actually go back to where you start in the very beginning of the game. And only if you've done a certain part of a quest will there be an invitation to Cainhurst Castle. And then once you have the invitation, you can't just go there. You have to go to another random level that you've already passed through and stand at a certain post for several seconds. And then a horse-drawn carriage straight out of Bram Stoker's Dracula will pick you up and take you to Cainhurst Castle. That's awesome. I love that you can discover things like that and feel like you're Indiana fucking Jones. You feel like you're on a real adventure. Same thing with the umbilical cords, a very integral part to getting the real ending of the game. Can completely miss them, especially on your first playthrough. Having to know where they are, they don't all appear at the same time. The second one that you get is in this very long tower that's very tricky to maneuver. You start at the top and you have to jump down all these boards to get down. And my first time doing it, I think I died like 20 times. But in the middle of those platforms is a door that you have to do a very tricky jump to. And you go to the real version of your hub world, essentially, and that's where you find the umbilical cord piece. That's bananas. Just trusting a player to be able to do that, to actually see the real last boss, is crazy. And that's one of the things that makes me love Bloodborne so much. The interconnecting levels also, we already talked about that about Dark Souls. Everything fits together. You can stand in the DLC. You can stand where you fight the I think they're called the Infinite Failures, something like that. It's the second boss in the research hall, and you look down and you can see everywhere you've just gone to get there, coming back up off in the distance. That's pretty much it for Bloodborne, I think. Amazing game, 10 out of 10. Sam.
Yes, my number 3.
Number 3. Getting down there.
So, yeah. Ooh, it's getting intense. So my number 3 is God of War 4.
You mean 2016 or 2018 God of War?
Yeah, the most recent God of War that just
Okay.
came out.
And you know what? This is also my number 3, so I'm going to talk about it with you if that's cool.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, this is fun. So for me, I was a little bit like I was so stoked for this game. Anything God of War, just give it to me. I'll take it. 10 out of 10. Love it. I was a little bit unsure of how I was gonna feel with his like next stage in life because Kratos is a very defined character. He's an asshole. And that's pretty much it. Like that's it. So just to see him in a next phase with like a son and he's like kind of gone off and he's changed his life and he's turned around, I was like, I don't really know if this is gonna vibe as well as it did before, but I had faith. And then also you start with a brand new weapon, which out of everything you've played Kratos, I've played all the God of Wars, I've played all the old ones, I've played like the mobile games, I've played like Ghost of Sparta, like the mini games, like I've played all of them, and you have the Blades of Chaos, like that's your weapon. That weapon is just as much a part of Kratos as the character itself. So having this axe, this Leviathan axe, this new weapon, was also a little bit of a take back. But
I have to say before you move on, you really have to hand it to Cory Barlog as a director for that game for somehow making a weapon that is just as satisfying to use and just as easy to accept in Kratos as the Blades of Chaos in the Leviathan axe. That's a feat in itself.
Yeah.
You
I
made a
had that
weapon-
thing in my hands for like 30 seconds. And it's like the first time, I think it's like you do a little tutorial with it.
Yeah.
And the first time you throw it and it comes back to you, I was like, okay, done. I'm in. I'm all in.
It's not that you can throw it and it comes back to you. It's that you can throw it and you choose when it comes back to you. That's the satisfying part.
Yeah. And it doesn't like just fly back to you. It actually interacts with the environment. So if you throw it and then an enemy walks in front of you, you can call it back at the right time and it's going to hit that guy on the way back, which was super exciting the first time it happened.
Matt, if you have anything to add, feel free. I know you love
well, I mean, right there, I remember being kind of lukewarm towards the idea. Like, it'll probably be good, but I'm not rushing out. And then I went over to your place, Chris, and I saw it. And I think you had me, like, start the game fresh so I could see the first little bit, which was great.
Yep.
What a beginning. But yeah, I remember that when with the axe and bringing it back and, like, actually trying to, like, throw, like, in kind of a high arc so I would, like, clip the top of their head and then it would end up kind of falling behind them and then bringing it back through them. And I was just like,
oh yeah,
I definitely spent a long time trying to get really elaborate hits on enemies on the bring back or like throw it somewhere and then try and line up 2 enemies and hit them both and everything. I had so much fun with that. I mean, it's not on my list. It probably should have been, but it didn't make the cut. So I'll hand it back to you guys.
It's okay. We got it. And then just story-wise. So story-wise, I've always really been into like Kratos' story. Even by the end of the game though, I still wasn't too partial on his kid. Like it just seems kind of like a side. I don't really care about him.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, I had one of like the greatest moments of video gaming history in my life. No spoilers to anyone who hasn't played it. But if you haven't played it, too bad.
Well, I'm spoiling the shit out of this, so you can go right ahead.
Spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning. Put up the Picard face. When your son is like dying,
yes,
and you get in your boat and you go down the river, and it's like a 15-minute long scene. Like it's a long bit of the game, and I had like just right around here in my heart, I had this hope that he was gonna get the blades, and it's just like I spent that whole 15 minutes of like, no, it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen, and he just slowly walks up to his house and like pulls apart that part in the floor, and I wept. Like there were tears streaming down my face, and I was so happy, and I haven't had that from a game or a story in a very long time, and It was amazing.
Isn't it great that they're in his house the entire time? They're there when you
Yes.
start the game, right underneath the floorboard. He tells Atreus not to go down there
Yeah.
because they're there. So let me add to that, because the kind of wider arc of that part of the story is also probably my most memorable and favorite beat in any story of any video game I've ever played. And you know, they really masterfully set the pacing for this game. So leading up to those events, you find Mimir, who is a god who's been beheaded and stuck in a tree by he's just been stuck in a tree in general by Odin, right?
Yeah, the other part comes later.
Kratos encounters him. He ends up cutting off Mimir's head, and then he just carries Mimir around. He carries his head around in like a bag or whatever. And everywhere you go, you go around this lake with Atreus and Kratos in a boat, and Mimir's there, and he's telling stories and he's making jokes, and you just get used to hanging out with Mimir. And then something happens where Atreus kind of lets out a bit of his like inner god powers that he has, his like recessive god powers, and he falls ill, and you think he's going to die, or it looks like he's very sick. So you spent hours and hours riding around this lake, telling stories with Papa Kratos and jovial Mimir, and now you're in a boat with Kratos, and Atreus is unconscious in the front of the boat. Mimir's not saying a fucking thing. It's dead silent. And you have to slowly paddle your way to see Freya, to desperately get help from her to try and save your son as Kratos. And so that by itself is haunting. And like, man, it sinks in big time, because you're used to everything being happy-go-lucky, or at least as much as it can for the God of War. And then there is this one part, and man, I'm sure the day they figured this part out or they wrote it, like the amount of claps they gave themselves on the back, I'm sure. You take Atreus, put him in your arms, and you walk him up the path that you've gone through before to get to an elevator that goes up to Freya's house. It's underground. So Kratos gets on the elevator with Atreus, the door shuts, and it starts going up. And it's like maybe a 30-second ride in real time. But you see this like mighty being, this god of Kratos, who's killed thousands of men and slain gods, with his frail son in his arms. And Kratos is clearly having anxiety. He's clearly having a bit of a panic attack. You can see his chest is raising up and down really rapidly. He's pacing back and forth.
Yeah,
and like, my God, that's the most human moment. And I'm like getting a little emotional thinking about it right now. The most human moment I've ever seen in a video game. And then getting to the blades, Freya says kind of cryptically, you know what you have to do. I guess she knows who he is. So you have to get back in the boat by yourself this time. I'm making Sam cry. You have to get back in the boat yourself this time and take almost as equally a long ride back to the very starting point of the game, which is Kratos and Atreus' house, all alone. And the lighting gets really dark and it's very somber, and the boat's moving slower than usual. And then the camera pans around, and fucking Athena is sitting right in front of Kratos. And on top of everything, you know, he's like heartbroken about Atreus. I'm sure he's worried to death. She starts like taunting him, telling him that he's going to be a monster forever, and like, you know, this was supposed to happen to you, or you deserve this kind of thing. And you know he's going to get the Blades of Chaos, but you don't know. That wasn't really spoiled for me. So I got to sit through that whole part saying, is he gonna get him? Is he gonna get him? And then, man, when you pull him out of the floor, like, it's the best because it's so well earned. You know, they really make you earn that part. They don't just toss it out to you. It's not just something you pick up off the floor. Like, they make you sit through like an hour of depressing gameplay to take up these weapons you said you would never have again in your life. You swore them off. You ripped them off your own skin to be rid of them, and you pick them up again for the love of your son, to go into hell itself and steal the heart from I don't know what the monster is called, but like, my God, that's amazing. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. That was definitely a very great moment. I will say another thing. Graphics aren't like a huge thing for me. I can usually take them or leave them. It takes like a mix between graphics and like good artful design to really make me go, oh wow, when playing a video game.
Yeah.
I play a lot of old games. I use my imagination when I play games. So, you know, like, even Minecraft can look good to me after it's made a few passes through my imagination. But when you go to Freya for the first time, and everything goes from kind of like, kind of gray and bleak, and, you know, still has good splashes of color, to this, like, crazy rainbow garden. And then there's this giant lush tree, and then the tree rises up and reveals it's on the back of a giant turtle, and the house is underneath, and everything. That just blew my mind. Like, the color, the design of everything, all of that. And also, what a villain in Baldur as well. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Without him, that game would not be, like, half as good as it was. That first fight between Kratos and Baldur.
Crazy.
Oh my god, when they're just like grabbing each other by the shoulders and pushing each other and the ground separates. Like, they just create a chasm.
And you feel it. Like, you feel every hit with God of War.
Yeah.
It's a really great moment to demonstrate, firstly, how reserved Kratos has now become. And like, he's trying to shirk off his old ways, because he lets Baldur hit him in the face several times.
He really does.
Before they fight. And he keeps telling him to please leave. And then they do fight, and you're reminded just how powerful Kratos can be, because he's also fighting another god, essentially.
Well, I always assumed that Kratos, like, didn't realize what he was dealing with, and he's like, if I hit you back, you're gonna die, so please go, because I'm just gonna crush your skull with one punch. And then he hits him, and the guy gets back up and punches Kratos over his house, and you're like, oh, it's on. Yeah,
it's a great moment for sure. I want to talk about the going into the meadow, Freya's meadow, for the first time. Just that like vibe permeates the whole game. The whole game like oozes magic and like fantasy.
Yeah.
You know, everything's so magical and wondrous. Like, using the Bifrost, amazing. And traversing realms, and it's so colorful and pretty. Like the animation they chose to do for it. The giant turtle. The snake,
yeah,
amazing. The giant snake that you talk to, even the sounds that they chose to make come out of that snake's mouth are hugely impactful. Very bassy and rumbly, like you can feel it in your chest. It's like, oh, that's what a giant snake would sound like, obviously.
What is he saying, boy?
Yeah.
He says he needs about 350.
Sam, did you want to talk about the combat at all?
Oh, God.
Now we're just doing God of War in review.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
The combat is perfect. Like, it's some of the most fluid combat actually in any of them, and it translates over to God of War 4. But it for something that is such brutal combat, it's beautiful. Like, I've always loved being able to use the blades or use the axe and like pull someone towards you and like seamlessly like throw them on the ground, rip their arm off, stab them with their own arm, and yet somehow it's just like it's beautiful, and it's so fluid, and it's the same in God of War 4. Like, it's just, it feels so natural, and it's one of those games too where you can be very strategic in how you play. There's a lot of different combos. There's a lot of different things that you can do, or you can just button mash your way through the whole thing, because button mashing triangle is technically a combo that you can just do over and over and over. But the combat, I love the combat.
To be fair, you can do that on normal. You cannot do that on the harder difficulties. You really have to think about your moveset and where you put your stats and everything, which is a great thing about the game.
The Valkyries.
Yeah, it's a great thing about the game is it's very scalable. If you're not comfortable with that kind of like Souls combat, you can set it on normal or even easier than that and just enjoy the game, enjoy the story. Yeah. You can beat the shit out of people and feel good about it. And if you want a real challenge, you set it on hard, and then you're utilizing every single tool they give you to finish those fights, especially the boss fights.
Yeah.
And you got to hand it to them for, essentially reinventing God of War. They had to do that. That was the plan. And really nailing the combat somehow. They picked a really good mix of the old God of War and what's become this like staple of amazing combat, which is Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. It's just From Software in general. And they mixed them together and they came out with this really satisfying mix of like reactionary combat and arcade style combat, and it works really well together. I like that a lot about the game. And if we have nothing else to add, we'll move on to Matt for his number 3.
All right. My number 3, Dark Souls.
Nice.
First one. My second Souls game, I got on the Souls train real early. So I played Demon Souls and was working on that when I heard they were making Dark Souls. And I was looking at it and I'm like, that looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I got stuck in Demon Souls. Or maybe just paralyzed with options because of the world tendency thing. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember thinking I was going to beat Demon Souls before Dark Souls. But then Dark Souls came out and I just couldn't help myself. And it just did everything that Demon Souls did better.
Much better.
Yeah, significantly better. It was a little less hardcore. Where's Sam going? Anyways.
I'm just plugging in my laptop.
All right.
Yeah, keep it going.
Anyways, but yeah, I was thinking, like, I knew I had to have a From Software game on this list.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Dark Souls, the first one, it has a special place. I beat it with multiple characters. It started the trend of you make a character, you get halfway through the game or so, start looking at what you did right and what you did wrong, and then I just start the game again with a second character, and I'm like, this time I got it. I played it so much, I just eventually burnt out the DVD Blu-ray drive on my PS3. I transferred, I got a refurbished, I got a used PS3 from EB Games, transferred my saves over to that PS3. That PS3 was not as refurbished as advertised and did not work. So I returned it, just got a fresh new boxed PS3, got home, realized that all my saves had been transferred onto that PS3 I returned, and had to start the game fresh after just getting my first New Game Plus character.
A pleasure.
So I just named it. I did a whole thing where it was like the Brother Sven was the character I lost. So I made Brother Johan his brother, his actual brother. And I made this whole thing where his brother got lost on this quest and he was going to find him, and just kept going and just kept making more things. Everything, like, you could say that Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 did things better than Dark Souls, but without that Dark Souls to work from, without that template, they never would have got there. It was the first time I looked back, it was not nearly as interconnected as later From Software games would be, but at the time it was just ridiculous to look back and find these shortcuts and all these loop arounds. It had those weird secrets, like returning to the Undead Asylum by going into a bird nest, the bird that brought you from there, and tucking into a ball and then getting taken back and fighting a tougher version of the very first boss in the game, totally optional. Also, something that Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 didn't do that I really miss, though I understand why they took it out, is you could enhance armor in Dark Souls 1 and 2. So finding that set of armor that, like, the weight was right and everything was great, but you wanted just a little more protection, you could sync Titanite. And I think in Dark Souls, I want to say it went up to plus 15. So
yeah,
you could really find pieces, like mix and match, or find a set you really like and just make that armor better. Better physical resist, better magic resist, better flame resist. The Tomb of the Giants, going into a place that was totally dark and being like, this entire game relies on me being able to see enemies telegraphing attacks, and now I can't. Like, things are just going to reach out of the darkness, and fuck with me. There were giant archers that could knock you off ledges in the dark. You don't know where they're coming from. You just know you're getting shot at. It was like so tough at certain points, but then overcoming it, so satisfying. And so many of the characters were so iconic. They kept like Solaire's armor you can get in every other Dark Souls game, even though he never appears again. Sigmire or Sigward. Sigmire was in the first one. Sigward is in 3. Yeah, but basically the same guy, same voice, same armor, same kind of bumbling. Oh. You know, just so many great characters. That storytelling style. In Demon's Souls, the story was very much fed to you. You know, there's this king of this land and all these people. And you could actually kind of see Dark Souls got a little more mysterious about it. Yeah, that's probably, you know, I'm always considering getting it for like PS4, the remaster, just because you guys are going through it. And I kind of want to go through it again, just talking about it.
We are going to, and I have it already.
Yeah.
All right.
Why not buy the game for a third time?
Yeah.
Fourth?
It's cheap too. All right.
No, that would be my fourth time buying the game.
Amazing.
I bought it for PS3. I bought the Prepare to Die edition for PC, which was shit. I got the remaster for PC, which was not shit. And now apparently I'm getting the remaster again. No regrets.
All right. I think we're going to save number 2 and number 1 for next week. That will be better. We spent a lot of time on God of War.
We sure did.
Not expecting that. So that means it's time for bets. Last week, we bet on how many total deaths we would have during our surprise Dark Souls 3 drunk through stream. This was last Friday. Matt bet, this was between the three of us, to be specific. Matt bet 26 deaths. Sam bet 33, and I bet 8 deaths total. The actual number was 22, making Matt the winner of this week's bet.
Again.
Just to break it down for you some more, I died 4 times, Matt died 7, and Sam died 11. To be fair, Sam was very drunk. Very, very drunk.
Very drunk.
All right, and next week's bet, Maneater comes out. A game where you get to be a killer shark and eat people in the ocean. Sounds like fun. It's developed by the same people as Killing Floor, which is cool. So it's going to have those vibes, I'm sure. What will its Metacritic Metascore be this time next week?
Well, I guess...
Matt?
Yeah, well, I'll go first because, you know, I'm reigning champ here. I think I've got three weeks in a row now.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 72.
All right, Sam?
I also said 72.
Okay.
Oh.
And my bet, 78%. I guess we'll see.
Okay.
So, Matt, you get the
what happens
word,
if it's 72? Or 72 is the win?
We fight to the death?
We'll decide next time.
We each write down a sign-off, but alternate words.
There you go.
But it doesn't have to be the same. So it'll just be nonsense.
So, Matt, you get the final word and you get to sign off.
I do. And I thought of, you know, I had an idea for a sign-off, but a better one came up. Sorry, this really came a lot faster.
What's your final word, though?
Ah, dear little ocelot, where have you gone? Are you hiding from me?
All right. And your final word, Matt?
That was it. It's something that boss says. My final word.
Yes.
I think I've said all I need to say.
Bye, everybody.